Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this week's webinar. There's lots of people still joining us, so just a few administration points before we get going with the actual content. So just to warn you that this webinar is a little bit longer than normal. We realised that for some webinars, like the practical ones like this one, which is getting started with hosting and promoting your own webinars and virtual events, we need a little longer than an hour. So just to warn you that this one's going to be running for about an hour and a quarter, by which time we should get through to the actual questions. Now, another important thing that you all need to know is that we're going to run some polls now, so that we'll run them while I'm waiting for a few more people to attend. So when you actually run your own webinar, I always recommend you do this at the beginning, as it's a great way of actually being able to introduce it while everybody joins. Somebody's asked in the chat, will the slides be available? Yes, the slides are going to be available in the form of a video, but I'm also going to send out the handouts. So I'm going to do that now. So what I'm going to do, because this is part of the training, is within the panel of the admin center, I'm going to click on my handouts button and I'm going to share my handout. So I've preloaded the webinar in the form of a PDF, and hopefully you should be seeing that on the screen. So can you see that, guys? If you go to the handout tab, you should be able to share that, and hopefully you can click on that and download. So Jess, can you see that, or if somebody else can tell me in the chat whether they can actually see the handout, that would be very useful. If not, yeah, excellent. Thanks, Caroline. I'm glad you can see that. That's great. Okay, well, the first thing I'll do then is I'll run some polls. I've got 3 today, so we've got a few. And the first one, so what I've done is I've opened the polls tab. I've got a couple of polls already queued, and I'm going to start the first poll. So my first poll, I'm going to read it out, and then you will be able to see, you'll be able to hear my question. But I'd like you to start entering the answer now, so that I can then comment on the results as we go through. So my first poll is, do you use events or webinars for your business? And these are the answers. No, we've never run any events, webinars or training courses before. We were previously running live events or training but stopped due to COVID. We continue to run webinars or virtual events before and during COVID. We started running webinars or virtual events since COVID. We want to run webinars or virtual events in the future as a result of COVID. COVID's got a lot to answer for, I'm afraid. We were planning to start running events anyway, so this will help. We plan to continue running live or hybrid events in the future. So you can click on more than one answer, because obviously some of these things, like, you might not have run them before, but you are planning to run them in the future, not mutually exclusive. So at the moment, the most popular answer is we've never run any events, webinars or training courses before, which is nearly a third of you, which I'm really surprised it's as high. So it's really good that everybody suddenly realised that this is a very good thing to do. And you'll see some of the reasons why you might want to do it in a minute. Now, the next most popular answer is we started running webinars or virtual events since COVID. So I'm assuming that you're here to find out a few more tips, find out what we've done. We also have got a quite high percentage, about 20%. We want to run webinars or virtual events in future as a result of COVID. So as I said earlier on, COVID's got a heck of a lot to answer for. So I'm going to carry on. If you want to carry on with that, you can still carry on polling, but I'm going to bring the next poll up. Oops, sorry, I clicked the wrong button. Let me go back. So let me go back to my queue. So my next question, why do you want to run a webinar or live event? So I'm going to start that poll. So you can see that the original poll is still there, but you've now got a poll underneath. And I'll just repeat the question. Why do you want to run webinars or live events? This is a nice and easy one. We are not planning to create webinars or live events yet, so perhaps you're just here to learn more. We want to run them as a new venture and running them for the first time, to replace or instead of our previous live events or training, in addition to our live events and training. So that's basically once they restart. And we want to run hybrid events, so a mix of live and virtual events. So there's only 2% of you not planning to run any events, which is good, because obviously if there was more of you, I'd say you were in the wrong place. The most popular answer is as a new adventure, running events for the first time. That's about a third of you. And then there's a pretty even split between, in addition to running live events once they restart, and also as hybrid events. So hopefully that's quite useful. It's sort of settled down as a sort of a three-way split between running for the first time, running them in addition to, and running a mix. Okay. My last question is, what is the purpose, or what will you want to use the webinars or virtual events for? So again, this is one where you can tick more than one answer. So we're not planning any webinars, events yet. I'm just here to find out more. To reduce the cost of running live events. We want to share our knowledge and be helpful. I think a lot of people have already done that. To develop our brand reputation as a thought leader or expert. To develop new channels. Sorry, I haven't started polling yet, so let me bring that up and I'll repeat them again. So just to repeat the questions, what is or will be the purpose of your webinars or virtual events? So we're not planning any events yet. To reduce the cost, we want to share our knowledge and be helpful. We want to develop our brand as an expert. I'm not getting any results yet, so hopefully, oh, yeah, they're coming in now. To develop a new channel to market our products or services. To reach a larger audience, in other words, further afield. To get more interaction and more engaged audience, maybe getting repeat attendees. To get more sales. One of the common uses of webinars is to use it as part of a sales funnel. And others, to run a conference or an event for the first time, invite new international speakers. So anything else that you can think of, really. Now, as I'd expect, this is much more evenly spread. So we're getting a range of different people clicking on more than one option here. The most popular is to develop our brand and reputation as a thought leader. I think 20% of you are interested in that one. And then about 15 to 20% are interested in a way of sharing knowledge, to develop a new channel, to get more interactions and regular audience, and to get more sales. So it's quite a split there. Not many of you are worried about reducing costs, which is quite interesting. And then there's quite a few of you, 4% of you, want to do something completely new. Excellent. So we've got some chats already. Let's see if there's anything new that I need to be aware of. Oh, it's just other people joining us. So thank you very much for that. So I'm going to go on to the main presentation. And let's see what's happening with the slides on the left-hand slide. So, okay, so what I'm going to do to start with is I'm going to just start off with a little bit of an introduction about myself and Annika Digital. So I bring this up for the people that have not met us before. So a little bit about me. I'm relieved to say the Formula One is starting this weekend, although I'm not very happy about the pubs being not opening in Leicester. I actually came to Leicester 40 years ago to do biology, and I'm a little bit of a scientist at heart before I became a marketeer. This is our office, and this is some of the team. This is the Drummer Awards that we won last year for for some of the work that we did on integrating digital marketing, Google Analytics, Google AdWords or Google Ads with Salesforce. This is my family, my cats, and my grandkids, my daughter and my hubby. And as you can see, I'm a bit of a rocker at heart. A little bit about Annika. There's 40 of us we've got, sorry, about 40 clients, and there's 20 of us at our office in Leicester. You can see the sort of clients we work with, a mix of national and global brands and a few local regional companies as well, and also a mix of B2B and e-commerce clients. Quite a lot of lead generation in there. Okay, so what are we going to cover today? So first of all, I'm going to give you a bit of an introduction to running webinars, and then I'm going to talk to you about selection of software, and I'm going to talk to you about really the different types of software, but focusing on using Zoom as a free or cheap option, and then focusing on Big Marker, which is the one that we use, as a more sophisticated option with a lot of features. A lot of marketing features, a lot of event management features. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that and give you some resources to go and do some research yourself. I'm then going to tell you the timelines of setting up and hosting your own webinar and what you need to do at each of those stages. I'm then going to go into more of a demo, which is why I've provided this handout of the slides, because if I'm doing it live, I then might not necessarily have time to go through the slides as well, but they are there as a resource that you can use later on. And then at the end, we'll be doing questions and answers, and you will see that there is a Q&A tab. Yeah, I do know that sometimes internet connections, particularly if you've got Sky at the moment, I'm having a complete nightmare with my internet over the last few days. So the recording will be released later on today, and you'll be sent that through by email. Okay, so let's carry on. So first of all, a bit of an introduction to actually running webinars. So the first thing I wanted to do was just explain some of the terminology about webinars and live events, and just to explain the difference. So I expect all of you have been heavily involved with using Chrome, Google Hangouts, Zoom, Skype, Teams, etc. So I'm sure many of you hadn't used some of these technologies really before you started working from home. And, you know, Zoom, like Google, has become sort of part of our everyday language. So a business meeting or a live group is a private meeting. It's usually less than about 20 people. It's collaborative. You can share your screens, etc. And you basically have to have been invited to join. And it usually is used for things like networking events and meetings. And there's some of the technology that's used. And it's really interesting how that's changed. You know, Skype has sort of been replaced by Teams, both owned by Microsoft. Google Hangouts has been replaced by Meet, and Zoom sort of come from nowhere. The thing that we're focused on mainly today is what we call virtual conferences or webinars, virtual seminars. And this is where you need to register, and someone like me or Caroline or Jess would be presenting to an audience who are usually passively watching or hopefully engaged, but they're usually watching in a browser or on their mobile phone, but they may be able to do other things while they're watching. They might just listen, or they could be really actively involved if it's used for education, or you know, if we're trying to sort of market a product or explain an induction or something like that. Now, typically this is a bigger audience. So at the moment, just to give you some idea, we've got 95 people joining. Now, this platform's got this current package has got a limit of 100. So if anybody else tries to join over once we get to 100, they won't be able to get in. So of course we'll need to upgrade to the next level. So most of the packages cope with 100, and then you have to go to a premium package. And the sorts of products that have been around for years are things like GoToWebinars. But there's a lot of new packages on the market which I'm going to go through, and they can be free or paid for events. Also, they vary in duration, so a lot of them may be just a couple of hours, but some can be a whole day or even a couple of days if it's a conference. Now, what a lot of people do is they will actually run a live event, and then they will record it. So what happens there is it feels like it's live because they might have the chat and there might be polls and things, but it's actually recorded and can happen at any time. It can be a set time, or it can be on demand, which is what we've got on our website. You can go and get all the old ones, and it's often used in a sales funnel because it's part of a registration education process. Yes, absolutely. You can run a virtual conference with a whole load of speakers. If Caroline or Jess would like to turn on their video, they will appear. They're probably, so if one of them will turn on the video, we can see them appear here. Yeah, thanks, Jess. So what we do is add them as additional hosts or presenters. Now Jess has turned hers off because she's working from home. And like me, she's been having a few internet problems. So her internet is really patchy today. So I've actually had to upgrade to fibre in order to be able to do this from home. So that is quite an important consideration, is that you do have a decent enough webinar connection. But yeah, also lurking in the background is Caroline, and Caroline's presentation next week, she's actually bringing some guest speakers from Sky, and I think, from a couple of recruitment companies, but previously we've had guest speakers in from Sky. The final one is live stream. These are usually used for entertainment purposes. Things like Take That did one with the Meerkats. They're usually public or open, and you're usually talking about hundreds or thousands of people joining, and quite often they're streamed to YouTube and Facebook as well. Okay, so that gives you an idea of the different types. And to be honest, we're really only focusing on the webinars and virtual conferences today. Now, why run these webinars? Well, they tend to be used for education, training, marketing, and sales. You can see from the polls, this was some of the things that I was asking you about in the actual polls. And the reasons tend to fall into two types. It tends to be around event management and sales and marketing. So this could be to replace a live event or training course, to reduce the costs. There's the option of hybrid events. One of our partners, Premier Events, who hopefully are on the call today, they've actually created a hybrid studio where it's got a stage, it's got a video screen, and it's all recorded with video cameras. So you can run the event there. It's all live streamed. You can bring in some presenters and sit at a certain distance away. But the interesting thing is that you can also use this as a revenue stream. So we're not doing that. All of our events are free. This is about our 14th event. We started running our events 2 weeks after the lockdown, and we've been running them every week, and we are going to continue to run them, carry on. And we might even do our conference as either a hybrid or a virtual event. This is our Leicester Digital Conference that we normally run in October. Now, from a sales and marketing point of view, you could be very altruistic, be very helpful. This was one of the reasons we started this off, was because we wanted to give our stuff away. We wanted to also let people know that, we were a thought leader and an expert. I think this was really apparent with things like the Google Tag Manager, some of the technical SEO, the paid social ones. They're quite in depth. It really gives an idea of exactly what we do as an agency or as a company. It's also a new channel to market your products and services, because it's a way of getting to new audiences and to really reach a larger audiences. Last week we had some people in from India and Portugal, so you can see that people can come from far afield to actually watch the webinar. And if you are after an international audience, you do need to consider the timing. So for the weekly webinars, it's Friday morning, but we are running some international webinars for USA audience, and of course they'll be later on in the day. Another thing that we notice is the number of really regularly users and attendees. So we've got people that come every week, and it's a good way of getting that repeat attendance from people that come in every week. And then the concept of using webinars, particularly the recorded versions, as part of an automated sales funnel, or a mix of live and recorded webinars, work really well there. Okay, so I want to just talk about selection of software. So the first thing I did was I did some researching Google, and actually I found that that wasn't particularly helpful, and the best place for finding information was YouTube. And the one that I like to recommend particularly is the top one. This is the channel of Active Growth, and he's done about 20 odd different webinars. You can see a couple of different ones in this screenshot. So this is his massive roundup review, which you definitely should go and visit. And then you can see he's done individual ones of all the different software that he's actually reviewed. A more recent one is from Podia. So this is slightly less videos and it's not as in much detail, but it's a bit more up to date. It's only a couple of months old. So it has a little bit more detail about some of the things that may have not been in the previous year. And then the one that I've marked is the big marker review, which if you decide that you are actually going to consider this package, I would go and have a look at this one in a little bit more detail, because it's got quite a lot of information. But again, it's slightly out of date. There's been a complete update since then, and there's a lot of live and new features. So if you are going to consider Big Marker, you definitely need to sign up for the trial, which I'll give you the link to in a minute. Okay, so what I did was I took all the platforms that were considered in the two videos, and you can see the ones that were reviewed in each of the different videos. And remember, the Podia one is actually newer than the Active Growth one. And then I've also provided all the links. Now, unfortunately, when you receive the video, you can't click on the links. But if you download the PDF that I gave you earlier on, you should be able to download that one. And then I've also provided a bit.ly link to the Big Marker. So if I can ask Jess to type that in the actual chat, you'll get that. But what I'm also going to do is I'm going to just quickly bring it up on the screen in the form of an offer, which is like a call out. So I've got that all ready to send, which I prepared earlier. So I'm going to also pin it to the top. You won't be able to see what I'm doing now, but in a second, what's going to happen is you're going to get this offer of the 7-day trial. And if you click on that link, it will take you to the Big Marker page that I've set up. And you will also be able to see the actual discounts. Now, the reason I'm doing it now is because when I close it down, you'll see that it's at the top in the right-hand side. So that will allow you to go and click on it. It's also a really important feature of this software. So it allows me to illustrate how that works as well. And then I'll show you the rest of the offers I do right at the end, so you won't get hassled with them throughout the presentation. So anyway, that gives you quite a lot of research. There'll be a lot of names there that you won't recognize. But interestingly, the three that, and this is the price comparison. So this gives you an idea of the differences in the price. Now, most of them are between $20 and $120, and nearly all of them are in dollars because most of them are American software. And this price comparison is based on paying monthly with 100 attendees, and the prices are based in 2019. So, for example, Big Marker, which we use, which is that one there, is actually gone up to $99, although there is an offer if you buy annually. Now, in most cases, you can buy these products more cheaply if you pay for a year in advance. Typically, it's about 20%, and you saw that in the offer that I sent out there. Now, you'll also notice that Zoom is really, really low cost. Now, you could try and do a seminar with a 3 version of Zoom, but it would be rubbish because you won't have any of the marketing functionality. The landing pages really don't work. And so what you tend to do is have to buy the Pro version, but you can also buy a webinar upgrade. However, the reviewers say this isn't worth the extra money, and I've just gone through that in the next slide. Now, if you actually listen to the review videos, they take about half an hour to go through, and it's a really good way of understanding how they work. I actually created this summary table on the 3 that I think you should consider. Now, I'm not saying that necessarily you shouldn't look at any of the others, and depending on what you want to do, there may be other ones that you might want to look at. So Crowdcast, for example, is very good if you are wanting to do large conferences. But the big reason why I came down with Big Marker is when I show you what my screen looks like, because I'm not sharing my screen, I can actually see the chat live. And I think that's a really important feature. Whereas in a lot of these other packages, you can't do that. Now, just to explain what's on this screen then. So I've got the three main ones that we're recommending. Zoom's here not because of the functionality, but because it's the lowest cost. And of course, most of us are familiar with using Zoom anyway. And you can see if you pay monthly and you buy the plugin, you're going to have to pay £11.99 plus the £32, which I think is £44 a month. Whereas if you pay annually and you buy both, it's going to cost you £440. Now, the advantages of Zoom are pretty much the fact that it's cheap, but the disadvantages is there's very, very limited functionality. When I start to show you the functionality that's in Big Marker, you won't want to use something like Zoom. And also, a couple of people have commented about trying to use other platforms like GoToWebinar. I think Marcus has made a comment in there. And it is really difficult to do it when you've got more than one speaker. So, you just don't have the functionality. Now, Big Marker, which is what I'm using and which we're going to do the training on, it starts at $99 or £79 a month, and that's for 100 attendees. Now, one of the advantages of this package compared with some of the other commercial packages is that the standard package is for a 4-hour webinar. Zoom does give you a long, I think it's 24 hours for the standard webinar if you pay. It's only 40 minutes if you've got the free one, so you don't really have any choice but to pay. But a lot of the other packages are only 2 hours. Now, if you intend to do training by webinar as well, which is what we do, then you really need at least 4 hours, and you can at least do it for a morning session and then an afternoon session. If you want to do a conference, a day or multiple days, you generally have to upgrade to a more superior and slightly more expensive package. Now, because of the offer, this works out at £948 a year if you go for the offer. And if you flick back over to the offer, that works out at $79, which I think is about £60 a month. So it's significantly cheaper. So what I would recommend is you buy it for 1 month on a monthly basis. If you love it as much as us, then you upgrade. We're actually going to be upgrading to the next package, which is 500 attendees, because as you can see, we're maxing out on the number of attendees now. But it took us a couple of weeks before we got to that point. So don't necessarily want to buy an annual package straight away, although there is an offer on at the moment. Finally, Webinar Jam. Now, this had a lot of great features. This was recommended by one of the reviewers, but this one is only available if you buy annually. It is, again, very cheap. It works out as, the cheapest of all of them. It's $4.99 or £3.98. It's got quite a lot of features. I don't think the features are better than Big Marker. In fact, I think they're a little bit, it's not quite as easy to use. So I was prepared to pay the extra to get the extra features. And also I wanted to try it monthly to start with. So, you really got to know that that's what you want to go for to commit for the whole year. And again, the link there, if anybody wants to actually go and see the packages for Big Marker. So this is Zoom in a bit more detail. So you can see you've got the different packages of Zoom. The free package, I think, is only 40 minutes, but it is up to 100. The paid package, which is £11.99. Obviously, the UK is a big enough audience for them to have actually got a landing page in pounds, but it's got very few features. And you've got to buy the add-on, which is the £32 a month extra onto the £11.99. So you will be paying £44, which, to be perfectly honest, is not a lot cheaper than what we're currently paying. So I think if you are serious about this and once you see the features, you probably will want to upgrade to a better package. Okay, this is the big marker packages, just to give you an idea of the range. I suggest you start off with a starter package. It's got pretty much all the features. Yes, somebody's asked me, can you stream? Yes, you can, but you might have to choose a different type of webinar when you're creating that. But you can see the different features. So there's quite a big saving, sort of 15 to 20% by going for an annual plan. But I would go monthly to start with the starter one. And then, like us, when you get ready to the point that you need to upgrade, then you might want to upgrade to 500 users. And also you get an additional host. Now, this is quite important because I'm going to show you our channel page. So we have an Annika channel page, but I'm using that for my weekly webinars. Whereas I'm doing some industry specific webinars, and these are going to be monthly. So you'll see the one I'm talking about in a minute is for the pharmaceutical and scientific community. I might want to put those in a different channel. And I also might want 2 hosts. So we could actually host different things at different times. So you can see there are some advantages of going up to the next package as well. So generally what I'd recommend is you start off small and monthly, and then you expand when you need to. You get so many features in this package that, you know, unless you are running a lot of evergreen or you want to run a whole conference, in which case you probably will go straight for the middle one. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do the timeline for setting up and hosting your own webinar. So I've laid this out in a diagram. Normally when I would be doing slides, this would build. So as it's a PDF that I've uploaded, I've actually just got the whole presentation all in one slide. And I've called this the 5 P's to planning and presenting your webinar. So the first stage is 2 to 4 weeks before, when we start to plan the webinar. Now, I know there's a lot of event organisers in the room, and I know you'll be horrified at the concept of organising an event only 2 to 4 weeks ahead. And you will be really surprised at how few people book more than a week advance. It was a real shock to me. And I'll show you when we go in live just how many people have booked for Caroline's webinar next week. It's really low, and it's only really on the Monday of the week of the webinar that we start to get all the bookings. So there's a good hint there that actually a Friday is a very, very good day to run a webinar. But don't run it at 9 o'clock because it will clash with ours. So please don't do that. But you need to plan 2 to 4 weeks advance. You then do the promotion the week or 2 weeks in advance. And what we do is we actually run effectively 2 streams. So we start promoting 2 weeks in advance, but the heavy promotion is a week in advance. And then the following week it shifts along one. So we've sort of got like a sort of a 2-phased approach running at any one time. So last week we were promoting Ed's tag manager, and we started to promote this one. This week we're promoting this presentation and Caroline's for next month. It becomes apparent. Now, obviously, if you're not running them every week, which I do recommend because it's a good way of building up your audience, but it's a lot of work, then you don't necessarily have to be running two in parallel. But it's worked really well for us to set that consistency of one every week. But just to warn you, to do this, there's about 2 days worth of work in the whole of this process. So myself and Jess share that between us. But also you've got the production of the slides as well, which can be anything. You typically have 35 to 40 slides. I've got more today because I'm doing a demo and a longer presentation, but you can expect that to take anywhere between 2 to 8 hours, depending on your experience. Now, the preparation of actually getting the webinar ready and going into the test webinar room is done the day before. And actually, we were in the webinar room 8 o'clock getting everything ready. So we've been working on that yesterday and today. And then we're obviously live, in our case, from 9 to 10:15. And then as soon as the webinar finishes, we close it down, we save the video. And then what happens is that we have to process the video. we send the video out, and then we also look at the statistics. So that's the sort of overview of the whole process. Now, because I wanted this actual presentation to be a checklist for you to do this yourselves, obviously we offer this as a service. So if anybody hasn't got time to do it, we will do this for you. But we want you to be able to do this yourself. I thought I'd also give you the detailed day-by-day breakdown of what we do. Now, I've done it in reverse order. So Friday, which is now, is presenting the webinar, and then later on today, emailing out the webinar. But I'm going to work backwards from 3 weeks ago. So 3 weeks ago, we agreed that I would do this week. And 2 weeks ago, we agreed that Caroline was going to do next week. So, of course, there's a 3-week lead-in of the time. And we give the presenter a week to get their act together and get titles, descriptions, and topics. But we need it on that Friday before we start creating everything. So effectively, just around 2 weeks before we go live, we create all the assets, and we do use Canva for that. So if you've not used Canva before, it's like an online Photoshop, which you've got a free and a quite a very cheap professional version, which gives you access to more images. We create the webinar within the Big Marker package, and we also create the landing page. Now, I'm assuming that you've already got your software and you've already created your channel and set it all up. I'm not going into that today, but you will see elements of that as I go through the demonstration and also through the slides. On the Tuesday, we update the website with our updated image and our link. And then we go on to mention it in last week's email. So I'm mentioning this week's presentation in last week's email. And at that point, I might get a few of my first signups. Now, somebody said they've lost their connection. I've not got any warnings to say it's my end. So I'm assuming it might be your end, John. If you want to re-log in, you can try that. If not, if you still carry on having problems, then try on your phone, or you can get the recording later. Okay, so the most important element of the promotion is the first email you send out from Big Marker itself. So we actually do that on the Monday. Now, there's a really important reason why we do that on the Monday, is because once you send that email out, it sends another email out 24 hours later, and then it sends out an email. So that's on the Tuesday. It sends another email out the day before, and it sends an email out this morning. Now, if you send your first Big Marker email on a Friday, it really means that their reminder email will go out on the Saturday, which isn't particularly useful. So getting the timing of this email is really, really important. Now, the other thing that we do is, because we've run Leicester Digital for 4 or 5 years now, we've also got Leicester Digital Meetup, which I do recommend. If you're going to do regular webinars, you create a meetup.com meetup. And we set up the webinar and launch the actual webinar via email from Meetup, and we do that on the Monday. So we usually send the email out in the morning, and we send out the Meetup later on in the day. Now, you can actually create the email earlier and schedule it, so you don't have to do it on the Monday. So all these things can be done in advance. Now, on Tuesday, another reminder email goes out from Big Marker. We also create our social media posts, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and we also prepare, or Jess does, the actual email for sending the following day. So we try and get that ready. Now, remember, we've already got a template. We've also got all the assets created. We've got the titles and descriptions. We've got our landing page. So actually what we're doing is moving the email around. We shift the one from last week down, and we move it all up one. So you'll see that in a minute. That's part of that process. And probably quite a few of you actually get our weekly emails. So at the moment, our weekly emails are focused on promotion, our webinar. If we also have some other things at the bottom for other promotions, but basically the webinar feeds into the the email feeds into the webinar. And just so you understand how we build our email list, we're doing paid advertising for people to download our A10 brochure, and then that feeds into the list. So we sort of got almost like a funnel built up. It's called a flywheel. So as people come in the top, it grows every week, and every week the list gets bigger and bigger. So on the Wednesday, we send out the email, and then on Thursday, a reminder email is sent from Big Marker. We receive the slides from the presenter, and then on the Friday morning, we get everything ready and we present it. So that's the detail of our timing. So as I said earlier on, you do need 2 days to do all this work if you're doing it on your own. As I said, me and Jess split it between us. We've got templates. It was a lot slower when I first started doing this on my own. And then between us, we've learned how to speed the process up. So please take advantage of our learning. It's taken us 4 months to get here. And so, you need to create your own processes, but something like this works really well. And although I'm not saying you necessarily have to do your webinar on a Friday morning, if you did your, I've left it in here so you can move all these days around, and you can then reschedule accordingly. Okay, so I'm going to quickly go through what's involved in the planning and each of the different stages. What I've done is I've highlighted the most important points on each slide. So, and I'm really repeating what I've just talked to you about with maybe a little bit more detail. So planning and preparation, this is 2 to 4 weeks in advance. So you want to get the brief of your webinar with the date and description. You want to create the graphics. You want to create the webinar in Big Marker, and I'm going to show you that. You want to create the landing page, and you want to update your website. And we've got a webinar page actually on our website dedicated to this now. And then you need to get all the details of the presenters. You need to upload their contact details. And then if you send them an invitation, they can also upload their bios themselves. So they can do that all themselves. Okay, promotion. This is 1 to 2 weeks before. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to focus on getting my email from Big Marker. Now, it's all very well doing this, but when you first start, you're not going to have a list. So if you've got any existing lists from any emails that you send out, I suggest that you email them from Big Marker as well as your company email. Often we find that text emails get a much higher response, and you want the company email to be sort of include other things and be more educational, whereas this is a sort of a call to action. So what you need to do is you upload your existing contact and details, and you do that at the top level. This is the sort of channel list, because what I'm saying there is that you've got 2 levels when you're actually in the account. You've got the level of the account or the channel itself, and then you've got a level of a dashboard for each individual webinar. Okay, the next thing you need to do is to promote the webinar by sending out the email for that particular webinar through Big Marker. And then our objective here is as people register for webinars, it doesn't matter how they came to you, you can gradually add them back into the top level. So we're building our funnel and we're building our lists, and I'll show you how to do that again in a minute. We also want to create a company email from MailChimp or similar, and we want to link through to the landing pages. And what we do there is we use a track to link, and I'll show you at the end how useful this is so I can tell where my registrations actually come from. I also want to set up all my social media. I want to set up my meetup, and if I've got any other networks that I'm a member of or YouTube, I can also add it in there. The day before and on the day, I need to get my PDF and upload it. Ideally, you want to get it in PowerPoint and upload it in PDF because then the quality will be better. You want to get any polls created. We saw those earlier. You want to do a demo to the presenters and train them on how to use the software. Please stop your ads. You don't want your ads to carry on running if your webinar is finished. And you want to set up and test the webinar room, which I'll show you as well. We also, on the day, and we usually do this about 8 o'clock, 7:30, we'll open the webinar room. We'll check that the PDF has loaded. We'll create any polls if we haven't done already. we'll load up or check the offers. And these do require graphics. So I do recommend you do as much of this beforehand. If you suddenly realize you've not created an offer, it's going to take you a good 10 minutes to do that. And we also create a sticky message, which you'll see that my sticky message is now at the top of my chat was replaced with my current offer. So once you load an offer, that sticky message actually disappears. Okay, now during the presentation, what I do is I open the webinar for everybody because you're all sitting in like a waiting room. I usually do that 5 minutes before. I get the attendees to leave a chat in the message and make sure they can hear me, which you all guys have been doing very nicely. Thank you very much. I also explain what's going to happen when I open the webinar. And then I actually, just before, about a minute before, a video record button comes up. And I'm going to go into my sort of presenter mode. I then click on the video record button, and then I do my introductions. And then I use the polls to sort of make sure that everybody else is online. I introduce the presenters, and then in this case, I'm presenting myself. But if I'm handing over to Caroline or to Chris or Ed, whoever it is, one of the other presenters, and then they actually take over. And then during the webinar, ideally, I have a co-host, so you'll notice that Jess has been answering as me. She's actually been answering some of the questions because I can't always do that myself. And also to manage any Q&A. We also have the offers, and I put that up early so you know what I'm talking about, but I usually do those right at the end. And in the functionality, it's just within one of the menus for the presenters. And I won't go into all the detail now, but effectively what I do is I launch that offer and I've pinned that offer at the top. So it means that during the presentation, if you want to open it, it will open a new window. When I get to the end, I thank everybody. I show them the final slide, which is advertising next week webinar. And I remind them that they're going to get the recording. I then end the presentation and I end the recording. Okay, so this is the detailed checklist that I've gone through, which obviously you'll be able to download with the slides. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to, sorry, I just need to do the post-webinar events. So this is processing the video, which appears in the dashboard. I then send that all out. I will need to put a cover page, which I won't go into any detail now. And then I publish it and I send it to and I actually send it to the whole list. So I send it to the people that didn't necessarily register for this, so they still got it in their inbox. And then I can also upload it onto YouTube as well. I can then go into the data, I can see my reports, and if I need to, I can provide a report. So when we're doing this for clients and they've got polls that they need to provide statistics, they need to provide statistics on attendance, I can also provide that. And then I repeat the whole process all over again. Okay, sorry, I've forgotten I got that one to show you. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a demo. So I'm going to now quickly show you some slides and then I'll share my screen. So I do it in that order because I think that's easier. Also, I'm very conscious of the fact that we, this is quite a long webinar. So I just want to quickly show you some stuff. So the first section, I'm not going to show you live, but basically that's creating your assets. And this is using Canva. So what I do is I'm creating my header image for my landing page. You've got the size there. So I take the previous one from Canva and then I gradually edit it. You can see I've changed the text. And what I'm using as my demo today is and I actually did this. So what I was doing, I actually created this live yesterday and then I saved the slides to present to you today. So some of this stuff I can't do live now. It would take me all day. But there are some parts of the platform that I will be able to show you live. So this is my header. And you can see it's got the logos because this is a joint webinar with Medilink. It's got the date. It's got the title. And what I've done in this case is I've used an image from the image library, which represents what I'm trying to show. So that's basically my header. I also need to create an advertising image, which is 360 to 200. So again, I take a previous one and I gradually edit it. And then I save this on my desktop to be used later. Okay. So the next thing I need to do is actually create a webinar and a registration page. Now, I'm not going to have time to show you that live. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the slides of this bit. And then the bit that I really want to show you is the actual dashboard. So first of all, we need to create our webinar. So I need to show you, and I will flip into the live account how we do this. I need to show you your top level dashboard that you will see once you've got some webinars in your dashboard. So let me just explain what this looks like, and then I'll share my screen. And the reason why I'm having to be careful how I demonstrate this to you is I actually have to go into the share screen mode to share my screen, and then I have to flip back to my slides. So it's a little bit of a pain going backwards and forwards. So I want to get to a sort of a demo section all in one chunk, really. So what I've got here is my top level dashboard, and you've got my account settings over here on the left. So I've already created an Annika channel, Annika digital channel, and these are my webinars. So these are the ones that I'm working on now. And so you've got the one, obviously this was recorded yesterday. So I've got the one I'm currently in, and then I've got the one that Caroline's doing next week. So this is before I created the one for the science one, which is in August. I've then got a different type of room. This is my live meeting room. And I've also got an on-demand one where I've uploaded a video. Okay, so this is the different types of ones that I've got in my dashboard. And I also have got the ability to create a new webinar over on the right-hand side. And if I want to dive into the individual webinar dashboard, then I'd click into each one of these. So in a minute, I'm going to go into the webinar just for this one. Okay. So once I've clicked my Create Webinar button, I've got a choice of all the different types of webinars that are available within the platform. Now, some of these require you to have a different package, but I'm basically going to go into the live webinar version. And once I go into there, I can actually start creating my webinar. So ideally, you want this in Word already. So I've got my title of my webinar, my description, and then I'm going to choose a one-off webinar, and I'm actually going to put in the date and time. Be very careful about AM and PM. We have had webinars that have gone live with PM and had to change them afterwards. If I then scroll down, I'm going to make it an interactive webinar, and I'm also going to make it available publicly, which means anybody can sign up as long as they go through the registration process. And then I'm going to create my webinar. Okay. I then have a choice of lots of templates, and this is to create my landing page. So we use the same one every time. This is the one that we use. It's called Boom. So if I click on that and I select it and hit next, I then go through and actually get my landing page. Now, obviously, I'm showing you on slides for this bit because it does take quite a long time to do this, and it would take me too long to go live. And also, there is a chance that the internet would go down. So I am actually just showing you what the recording looks like. Okay, so this is my landing page, and it's already brought in all of my details. It's created a form for me. And one of the things that I would recommend you do is it's in the custom fields in the actual dashboard menu, is I always change this to first name and last name. That will allow you to collect the first name and last name rather than just the full name here. So you can see later on, if you go in now to register for this event, this would actually be a first name and last name, not just the name. You can see the edit symbols, which means we can actually edit the text in here. You've also got the presenters further down, and I can also edit the image, which is what I want to do next. Okay. I'm just trying to get out a full screen. So, okay. So if I go to my next slide, what I've got is the actual process of editing that header. So this, by clicking on the button, it gives me my edit banner image. And then what I do is I select my image and I upload my image, which I prepared earlier in Canva. And it's really important that you do all this prep work in advance, otherwise it takes forever. And then I can select that image and I can readjust it a little bit. But because I know the size, I've created it the right size to start with. And that does help if you create them in advance the right size. I then have my header, my landing page, and you can see I've inserted my header there. We then go on and we want to look at the menu. So I'm going to share now. So bear with me while I share my screen. You'll see I've got lots of stuff going live. Just going to make sure I go on the right one. Okay, so hopefully you should be able to see my screen now. And I can't see you anymore. Jess, could you put on your mic and just tell me whether you can see my screen, please? So what I've got here is while I'm waiting for Jess to tell me what's happening, this is basically my top level screen. And I've got my menu on the left-hand side with my channels. Here you've got the Annika Digital channel. Can you see it, Jess?
Yeah, I can see it.
Excellent. And if I click into my channel, you'll actually see my channel with all of the current and past webinars, and there's more there. And then if I go back home to where I was just a minute ago, I come back to the same place. Now, the other thing that I use a lot in here is the email list, which I will show you later on. So this is my top level menu. It is a little bit confusing because, of course, if I go into this one, this is the one that I'm currently live on, so I don't want to do that. So I'll quickly go into the one that I actually used as my example, which is this one here. And then I'm going into the dashboard for this particular webinar. And I know I'm in the webinar because it's up here. And I can go back to my top level at any time by going up to the top. Now I'm in the Manage Webinar section, which is the information that I've got here. And you can see lots of information about managing the webinar. I can see at the moment I've got no registrations. I can get a link. And I've got a whole load of menu items, which I will go through with you in a little bit more detail. Now, if I actually want to edit my email, so this is my top level menu and these are the side menus. So as I go to edit, you'll see that that will change. And I've got my different details here and I can actually edit the details in this particular tab. And if I want to send out an email or an invitation, which I'm going to show you in the slides, I go into this tab and I can actually send out an email, which I won't be doing obviously until nearer the time. So most of the time I'm in edit, manage of the email. I can also add my presenters in here. Currently there's nobody else in there. And I can also play around with my design. So this will be my design of my header, my landing page, and also the elements actually on the waiting room and also on the channel. Okay. I've got a very extensive list of menus and functionality that I can use. And obviously I'm not going to go through all of that with you now, but I have got some instructions on which ones I use and how I use them. But the most common thing I'm doing is I'm going and grabbing a link. So if I want to go and grab a link, I can put in where my source is going to be. So if I'm going to make a LinkedIn post, I'm going to that will be added to the end, and then I can go and grab that link and use that there. And then things like I'm looking at how many registrations I've got, etc. I can also go to the test room there, and if I scroll down a bit further, I've got a level over functionality about loading content. And this is where I get my widgets to put on my website, either before or with the video. And then I can also, this is where I do my email. Okay. So I am going to come out of this because I am very conscious of the time, and also because I need to show you more stuff live. So I'm going to now go to, so hopefully you should now be able to see my screen. So what I'm doing now is I'm just opening my slides again. So you can see I've come back to where I was before. You'll notice that when you're actually in the webinar room, you can also load up videos in advance. So it doesn't have to be just slides or PDF. And also there's a whiteboard facility which can be overlaid there, so you can actually draw on the slides as well. And that functionality is there. So just to recap, this screen here, I'm actually in the individual webinar. I've got my main menu at the top, and I'm in my manage webinar, and then this is the sub menu of all the things I can do when I'm in the menu, and then this is the main information that you'll see. Somebody's asked a question about sources. Yes, absolutely, I've got some data to show you on that. That's why we track the links, so we can actually see where the links have come from. Okay, so this is the dashboard options for the menu options for the manage webinar, which I was just on just a minute ago. That's the top, and then it scrolls down. And what I've done is I've color coded them according to planning, promotion, preparation, presentation, and post webinar. So if we look at planning, we can change the custom registration fields. So I've got first, last name, and company. You can add industry, sector, where did you hear about us, whatever you want. Promotion, I've got my registration widget, I've got my email attendance and import contacts. Preparation, this is all the loading up of content. This is testing the webinar room. The actual presentation live, that's going into the waiting room and setting that up. And then the post webinar, that's the analytics and reporting, which is what Marcus is asking about, but also getting the live webinar widget. And then once you've got a recording, you'll see a recording widget in here as well. Okay, so I also want to update my channel page. So this is what my channel page looked like before I uploaded it. So you've got this week's, next week's, and the actual webinar is creating, and it's got a blue image because I haven't edited it yet. So you can see I can mark it in there. I can also get through the design, and very similar to before, I can just upload the image that I prepared earlier in Canva. And once I've done that, you can see what it looks like. It's looking much nicer. I've got the image and I've got the actual details there. And I can actually edit it from here as well, or go into the main webinar dashboard. Now, when you come to promotion, the key activities is probably updating your website, sending out a big marker email, and sending out your own email. It really depends on the size of your social following. I have gone quite an extensive list already, so I'm just going to show you some of the things that you can do. So you can go and get widgets and codes, and this is what it looks like. We found that if we got too many widgets, it slowed the website down. So what we did is we keep the recording as widgets, and we keep the upcoming ones as an image and a link, which you can see on the next screen. So this is what it looked like when there was just two, and I get my shared link which says Annika website, and then what I do is I just add an image and add the link in there, and then people click on, they go straight to the landing page rather than them filling in the form on here and it's slowing the site down. The big marker email is where we get the majority, and you'll see some figures earlier on. And when we first started, it was about 20%. The more recent ones, it's 50% of our signups are from the email. Now, the reason for this is as we have the email addresses from people as they register, we add them back in. And so it's sort of a self-fulfilling audience, really. So first of all, I've gone up to the channel menu where I need to add my lists, my emails. So I've got 4 lists. I've got my A10 sign up list, which I've imported from my marketing automation system. I've got my academy list, which is where we give access to our free training materials, which you'll see later. So I've got a list of people there. I've got my import from previous webinars, and I got my original registration email. So I started off with 100, and it's gradually got bigger and bigger each week. So what I do is I go to the list that I want to import, which is import from previous webinars. I've already downloaded my CSV from the previous webinars, and then I go to import list. I then can create a new email list. You can also import from Gmail, Yahoo, or Outlook, which is also really helpful to know, or you can actually manually put some emails in here. But I'm going to import from a list, which is CSV or Excel. And so I save that list. And the first thing I do is I make sure that my columns are correct. Now, I've hidden the email addresses, obviously, for GDPR purposes, but that one's my first name, that's my last name, and that's going to be my email. So I make sure my columns are marked correctly, and then I import them. So if you're used to doing list imports into things like MailChimp, this would be really familiar to you. I then see that my new list has grown because I've added new lists from my previous webinar. So my master list is now grown, which means, and I want to do this before I send my email out, because then that way I've got more people. So I will do this after this email. I'll get everybody that registered and I'll add them in, and that increases my list every time. And typically, if I think we had 170 people registered today, and I've got about 95 people listening in. So you get about sort of 50% to 2/3 actually attend. And then afterwards, when you put your video widget up, you do get additional people register afterwards because they've got to register to see the video. I then go into my email section of my actual webinar, because of course I can do this at a webinar level now, and I click create a new webinar. And then I've obviously set this up because I've run it previously, so a lot of the design elements are set up. But the first thing is I choose all my lists, so you can see they're all here. So I choose all my lists. I want to send it to everybody. And then what I want to do is I want to preview and edit what it looks like. So there are some different templates and things, and you can make this look different, but a lot of this is dynamically inputted in from the settings you've already created. So this is taking the title, it's taking the date and everything automatically from the system. And then I just edit a few tiny amounts every time, and I can tweak this, but it's really quick. This only takes about 20 minutes after you've done the first one. I then can play around with the design, so I can add different buttons and things, and then I can schedule it. So it's a quick review. I hit schedule or I send now. So generally I do this the day before, and then I schedule it for about 9:30 in the morning. I let people get a chance to get through all their spam. So I never have it for 9 o'clock. So it's always a little bit later. So by that time they've checked their emails, and ours arrives just as they're at the point that their inbox is nice and clean. And this is the scheduling, and then once you schedule it, you can then get a confirmation. Okay, so I now need to show you the test webinar room. I'm a little bit concerned about time, so I'm going to have to show you on the slides. I do apologise for this. I had hoped I would be able to go in and show you it live, but to be perfectly honest, I'm a little bit worried about running a live and a test one at the same time. So I have got slides that I've prepared earlier. So the first thing that you do is you go back to your individual webinar. You go to manage webinar, and you go to the test the webinar room on the left, and you launch the test webinar room. Once you're in the test webinar room, you go through a couple of stages. Sorry about the terrible picture. So first of all, it tests your audio and equipment. You get a little bit of your view of your webcam. You can choose an alternative camera if required, and it gives you an idea of your network speed. You then continue to the webinar by pressing the continue to webinar button. Once you're in here, you will then get the same view that we're running, and I just need to show you exactly what that consists of. So at the moment, most of you should see the yellow screen and the blue screen. So this is the same as us. So this is where the presenter's images, the slides, the video, the screen share, and the whiteboard show. This is where the chat Q&A. So you should see exactly the same stuff as us. But as presenters, myself, Jess and Caroline are also going to see these presenter modes up here, which is the buttons to control the videos, the video, the camera, the mic, and also selecting what we want. Once the slides are in, you also get that here as well, once they're loaded. And then we also get the host control panel, which gives me an idea of the buttons that I'm controlling, things like mic, but also the attendees, the recording, etc. So you guys don't see any of that unless you are a host or your presenter's been given control of it. We can then preload our files. So this is preloading the PDF. So you just go into the manage section to preload these. You can do the same with the handouts. And similar to the situation just a minute ago, when you're actually in the webinar and you click on slides, you'll get a screen that looks like this. Now, if you have to make any sudden amendments, you can drag and drop and upload the webinar. But once the webinar room is open, you have to do it in here. You can't preload it. And then when you open it, it will then show you the slides. And this is now the live webinar room. So I've uploaded, I just did this as a mock-up. I've uploaded my slides. I should be able to click from one slide to another. I've got my image there, and I'm now live, and these are all showing. And I've just hidden the bar to give me a little bit more space, but I can click on that. So again, you'll see exactly the same as us in the yellow and the blue and the greeny area, but we will have controls on the top and the right. Okay, so during the actual webinar, I've shown you some of this. We've loaded some polls, we've answered some chats. I've already shown you some offer. We can turn the whiteboard on and draw on the screen. We can do some handouts, which I've also shown. And I can also open the mics of some people in the audience, and we can have a general discussion as well, which we're not going to do because we're going to run out of time. But we might be able to answer a few more questions at the end. And if anybody really wants to ask a question, if they ask in the chat, we can open the mic. Okay, so once I've done my presentation, what's going to happen is I'm going to actually go and look at the recording, and I'm going to look at the results. So the video takes a couple of hours to process. It is worth allowing, say, 2 hours. And then once you get it in there, what will happen is instead of it being shown as your webinar, it will disappear and it will appear in the menu in the recording section. You're not going mad. It basically moves out from all your old ones, go into the recording, and then you can actually see what's happening. But in order to get it there, you have to process the webinar first. So what happens is that once you go in there, back into your webinar dashboard, there'll be like a revolving screen, which really confused me to start with. And then once it's ready, you can then publish the video. Now, what you need to do is grab a screen cover from the video, first of all, and you really want to do that with the introduction screen and then some of the people talking. You also don't want it with a coffee cup in their hand or looking in the wrong direction. So you might have to play the video a little bit to grab the best screen. And then once you've grabbed the best screen from the video, you can then click publish, and then it will offer you the opportunity to send the video out. And I actually send it out to everybody, and it does give you tick boxes if you want to send it out to everybody. They'll then send that as an email. You will actually get a notification in your email when your video is ready, so you don't have to keep checking back. As I said, it usually takes a couple of hours. So somebody asked a question earlier on about the analysis of actually what happens, and I've got two to show you. I've got the 5th of June, which was the one I did a month ago, which was digital marketing in our pajamas. And on the left-hand side, you can see the number of registrations. And this is a bit small on my screen. I think it was 171. I think I had 95 people attended. And during the actual attendance, it tells us whether they're engaged or not. And I had a 99% attendance rate. And then I can also see where those registrations come from. So overall, we had 21% came from the big market email, and then the others came in referrals and organic, which doesn't really help us. So you really need to look at these two. So the referral sources, this is a bit like in analytics. I can see whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, big market or other. And again, that's not particularly helpful. So it's really important that you use tracking codes, which you can do with the link. So you can see here that the East Midlands Chamber was promoting this seminar, and I got 11 from them, which wasn't very many. My own email, we were getting about from 2 different emails, because you can see we send them different weeks. But the biggest one for me was GS10K, which is a networking group that I belong to, and I actually got 40 from that. And it was the first time I'd posted in the group, and that was a real success. And since then, I've posted every week. Now, all of these people then went back into my list. So if I look at what happened this week, and this was of yesterday, I've now got about I can't read that, sorry. I got about 164 people registered. Now I know, because I can see I've got over 95 people attended. I think it sort of dropped off a little bit now as we get to the end. That's quite normal at 10 o'clock. You do start to lose a few people. And then this is the source. So this time my email invites were nearly 50%, because of course that's working all the time. And then you can see that I've got a mix over here. So this time the chamber sent a lot more people. I've got 30 people from them, and GS10 I've got an additional 25 people, and that's in addition to the previous lot. So any networking events is really helpful. I've only got 1 from the meetup, and I've got slightly less from the email each time now, because of course they can sign up with Big Marker first. Okay, also you can download a spreadsheet as well of all this detail, which is really helpful if you're doing any more analysis. So I think that's my final slide. So just to bring up some of the offers for you. So I've got the offer again for the actual package. So I'll just send that out again. So if any of you want to click through to the trial, it just saves you going to find it. And then if you do sign up, there is a, you can do the trial and then still sign up monthly. So it's still worth clicking on the link for the free trial. You just have to click on the buy now button and you'll get the free trial. I then got the offer for our DMI course, which I think is very useful for anybody that wants a qualification. We're running this in October, and that's going to be a hybrid course of 12 individual days. We've taught by the team, but that will be a webinar as well. This also gives you an idea of the sorts of pop-ups you can do here. And the final one that I'll do today is the free access to the Academy. So this is all our training materials. So if any of you want to click on this button, what will happen is you'll get free access to the Annika Academy, which has got over 100 presentations and training materials that you're very welcome to get access to. And we'll sort out the access over the weekend and Monday. Okay, finally then, those are the links. So you've got the Annika website and the Annika Academy website. You can also book an hour of my time at calendly.com and Stanley. And then my final slide, which I recommend you also include, is you always include a preview of what you're going to do next. So this is Caroline Spence's presentation next week. She's going to be talking about your personal profile, LinkedIn profile. And it's to do with helping you perfect your profile so that if you are looking for a new job or you're looking for recruiters to find you, they're going to think you're amazing. We will do a later one on the business side of LinkedIn, but that will follow later on. And I think that is the last slide. So I'm not sure if there's any more Q&As. Yes, so I think Jess has already answered this for me. When you have the black panel on the presenter view, you could scroll down and you could see all the individual attendees, so you get an idea of who they are. So during the presentation up till 10 o'clock, we had about 95. Unfortunately, people didn't realise that this was a slightly longer presentation. So at 10 o'clock, people have other things to go to. So we do lose a few at 10 o'clock. So ideally, you want to run it in an hour if you can. I knew this one was going to be slightly longer, and so therefore it's important that you put in the information that it's going to be a little bit longer. If that's all the questions, the other thing that I would say is what I'm going to do next. So I'm going to end the seminar, the webinar, and then I'm also going to stop the recording. So that's gonna be what happens next. So yeah, so the apprentice levy, you can't actually, the CIM element of it is part of the apprenticeship levy, the DMI isn't. So just for the people that are interested in the qualification, there's two elements to it. The Digital Marketing Institute is the standard amount, and there's an optional extra to do the CIM because of the extra cost of the exams and the extra tutoring that goes with that. But the CIM element is part of the digital marketing apprenticeship, but you would still have to be registered as an apprenticeship and go through all of that as well. Excellent. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Yeah, if you want to monetize, somebody's asked about monetization. You've got to have something that people value. There's so much free stuff that's out there that, you know, if you are going to be offering stuff that people are prepared to pay for, it's got to be unique. So training course is a good idea. If it's a conference where you're bringing in guest speakers, but we really didn't do this to make money. We wanted to do this to show our expertise. A lot of the original presentations were about giving back and helping people and education, but it does have integration with things like Skype, so that you can actually, you know, make it a fee-paying event, particularly for a conference. Excellent. We've still got a couple of questions coming in. The planning process for Zoom is similar, but you just haven't got the same functionality as you have with Big Marker. So you have got the ability, once with the professional packages, to send out an email and create landing pages, but it's nowhere near as sophisticated for creating lists and all the other things that you can do. So it is worth trying with Zoom and maybe doing a practice. And then if you really think it hasn't got the functionality, most of these packages you can pay monthly. So if you want to upgrade and pay monthly for Zoom, you could, and then test it. But it's really designed as a live meeting room rather than as a webinar software. And you probably noticed that Big Marker has got that functionality as well. But most people are using things like Google Meetups and Hangouts. So you don't need to pay for one package for live meetings and then another package for webinars. You know, you really only want to pay for the webinar part of it. Yeah, we've got a couple of other questions. Yeah, I think most people have put them in the chat as well. So I think we've covered all of the questions that people have asked. So thank you very much, everybody. If that's all for today, have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. Oh, there's a final question from Tim. No, I don't think it does need more than 3 to 4 weeks, Tim. In fact, I think if you spread it out, you just won't be as concise. You need to get into a process that's regular. So if you're only going to hold one for a month, you need to be working, the month before. And if you're doing it weekly, people just aren't interested in registering that far ahead. If it's a full day conference with lots of guest speakers, yes, absolutely, you could do it further ahead. But just for an hour webinar, people are planning their week as that week. They're not really, they might do it for the following week, but you can see that, we're only getting maybe 5 to 20 the week before. You then, most of them will then come in once you send the email from the system. Yes, you can cap the amount of attendees, but it's almost always determined by what package you've got. So the package is limited by attendees. Nearly all of them have 100 as the basic package. So you can have 200 registrations and only 100 people actually attend. and they normally jump up to 500 as the next band. So if you've got the ability to have 500 attendees, I wouldn't limit it at 200. I don't think they're designed to do that. But you just need to be aware that you will get about a third dropout rate compared with the number of people registered. Anyway, I think that's the last question. Thanks, Tim. I can see by the number of people how many people are left now. So yeah, we're down to about 40 people. So I think most people have left the room now. I hope that was useful. Please join us on a regular Friday. At the other ones, you would actually get a little bit more about how to do the digital marketing to promote the event. This time, we're focusing on actually the process of setting them up and what techniques you should use. Interestingly, LinkedIn isn't particularly effective as a promotion method because there's so many people using LinkedIn. And actually, even, I've got 8,000, nearly 9,000 followers now, and I will only get, 20 or so likes at the most to a webinar. It's just not getting the reach that it used to. Excellent. Well, I'm going to close the webinar down now. Hopefully, we'll see you all next week. Thank you very much.